What is going on, everybody? It is Dealing with DFS, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video, I'm going over Week 9's Thursday Night Showdown on DraftKings and Fanduel. I have the DraftKings prices, the Fanduel prices, some notes for you guys, and the keys on the top right so you can kind of navigate through what we have. So let's get into it. Derrick Henry, most expensive on both sites, and probably one of the highest projected players on tonight's slate. Getting 76% of the red zone rushes, even with someone like Tajay Spears, who's I think looked really good in the role that he's had for that team. Pittsburgh allowing 4.5 yards per attempt carry, and the Titans are running at 4.5 yards per carry as well. Pittsburgh allowing 24.3 DraftKings fantasy points per game against. So Derrick Henry in a really good spot tonight. I think the game is very ugly on paper. There's not a lot to like. We've seen both defenses kind of get abused and used, and both offenses look very bad. So this could be a very low-scoring, ugly, gritty game for who's scoring any type of points. So next on the list, DeAndre Hopkins, second most expensive on DraftKings on FanDuel. I think he goes down to like number 5 or 6, 13,000 on FanDuel. So he led Tennessee in targets, tied with Chig at 6, but for wide receivers led them in targets. Pittsburgh allowing 41.5 DraftKings fantasy points per game against. 39.1% of the red zone targets going to DeAndre Hopkins. I do think DeAndre Hopkins, regardless of the questionable injury status, is going to play. It's not going to limit him as much as some would think, but on DraftKings, you're paying a lot for Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins. 22.8. That's almost half your salary gone right there. That's not considering the captain price too at that. On FanDuel, I like his price at 13, right? He's below Will Levis. He's below Kenny Pickett. He's below George Pickens. So he's below some guys. You're not overpaying for him. He's kind of right where he needs to be, under the quarterbacks and under George Pickens. So he has that advantage there. Will Levis for me is a fade. Mike Tomlin is 23-5 against rookie quarterbacks. It's a crazy number. Obviously, they lost and got embarrassed by C.J. Stroud this year, so take that into consideration as well. But Tennessee has the 7th worst PFF pass block advantage going into this game. DeAndre Hopkins, like I said, I don't expect him to be out. I expect him to be in. The toe thing is a little concerning, but I'm not as concerned as others are on it. I think he's just too expensive for what he did, right? Rookie quarterback first game going against Atlanta, whose defense was good, broke down. But, I mean, for a quarterback that had one good game so far, I just don't buy in this one. Like, he could go off, and I can eat my words easily, right? Could hit the C.J. Stroud effect and just look really good for a team that didn't look good on paper. So I can eat my words easily, but I'm going to bet on the fact that Mike Tomlin and that Pittsburgh defense is going to take care of this rookie quarterback. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill's out, which is why Will Levis is in. Kenny Pickett is in, though, at 9,200 on DraftKings and 13.5 on FanDuel. So 4th most on DraftKings. On FanDuel, also 4, right? So ugly game where I think Kenny Pickett succeeds fantasy-wise. Like, when you're considering the top, 5, top 6, depending on what site you're playing on, in this game where I like Derrick Henry, I like some of the pass catchers on Pittsburgh, I like the running, there's a lot to like on Pittsburgh in this game, right? It's not a very high-scoring-esque type game on paper, right? Just everything looking at the numbers. And Kenny Pickett's not a huge fantasy football quarterback, which is worrisome for me. But I believe with his price point, it's a good price point in this matchup. I believe he can succeed of 15-plus fantasy points. So Tennessee's allowing 7.9 yards per attempt. That's top 5 worst defensively. So Kenny Pickett can succeed with Deontay Johnson being back. I like the price point. I like Kenny Pickett tonight. George Pickens, I like on DraftKings, not as much on FanDuel. The reason I like him on DraftKings is because you're probably playing a 50-50. Are you playing George Pickens or are you playing Deontay Johnson? You're probably not playing both. If you are, you're very ballsy. But George Pickens on FanDuel, right, clear cut, 14,000 on FanDuel, Deontay Johnson, 12,000. So huge difference on FanDuel. no difference really on DraftKings. So if the pricing were 12.5, right, total different story on FanDuel. Tennessee, and both these numbers are the same for Pickens and Johnson. I don't want to repeat them. Tennessee allowing 41.1 DraftKings fantasy points per game. 2 wide receivers. Good matchup for George Pickens. And like I said, just 2K more on FanDuel. Deontay Johnson, slightly better matchup than George Pickens. 20 targets in his 2 games back for Deontay Johnson. So it seems like Kenny Pickett, Deontay Johnson getting that connection again. Obviously, Tennessee will adjust to Deontay Johnson's 14-target game. George Pickens can succeed if that is the case, and Tennessee kind of worries about Deontay Johnson a little more. But both are really good receivers, both good plays. Like I said, it's just the pricing difference on FanDuel leans me toward Deontay Johnson. Najee Harris, 7,200 on DraftKings, so 800 more than Warren. On FanDuel, 1,000, so pretty similar in pricing there as well. Tennessee's run defense has given up over 100 rushing yards a game in the last 3 games, kind of falling off. Pittsburgh is just a very ugly winning team, so I don't love these guys in Harrison Warren, right? I'd rather pay up for the wide receivers of Pittsburgh, pace and defenses, kickers, but in an ugly game like this to where, maybe Tennessee tries to run the ball, they just can't score, they kick some field goals. Pittsburgh does the same thing. They try to run the ball. Najee Harris is going to run the ball. Jaylen Warren getting the targets for the team. I believe Najee Harris is probably going to get the red zone work. If Pittsburgh, who does not get in red zone field position a lot, Najee Harris could get those under 10 rushing yards and rushing attempts, so stealing a touchdown. But Jaylen Warren could get a receiving touchdown in the red zone, right? Used a lot in the receiving game as well. Steelers defense, I really like Steelers defense tonight, right? 7 takeaways and 9 sacks in the last 3 games. And you consider they've played Jacksonville, the Rams, and Baltimore in those games. So only giving up 20 points was the most, and that was against Jacksonville last week. 17 and 10, I believe, were the other 2 numbers. So Steelers defense has been really good. I believe Hayward will play tonight as well, too. So playing against a rookie quarterback, could have some of that miscommunication as far as going to the wide receivers. And, Joey Porter Jr., obviously Fitzpatrick's out, so that's a huge blow to the Steelers' defense. But I still really like Pittsburgh's defense in this matchup. Tyjae Spears, I just like on FanDuel. DraftKings, he's really hard to get to if you're paying up for 2 or 3 of these guys up here. And there's not a whole lot of value that I really like. So Tyjae Spears only on FanDuel, 7,500. 4 targets in 5 of 7 games this season for Tyjae Spears. So getting some of that receiving work, like I said, you look at his fantasy numbers, they're not terrible. So on DraftKings, I just can't get to it pricing-wise. FanDuel definitely can. I think it's a huge value. Chris Boswell and Nick Folk, right? Both offenses bad in the red zone. Pittsburgh can't even get to the red zone. But both defenses also very good in red zone percentages. So I really like both kickers. If you could find some kicking props, I really like those tonight. Chig, another guy I like on FanDuel. If you can't find a lot of value outside of the top players, Chig, then okay, I'm okay with on DraftKings, but mostly just on FanDuel. It's not the best matchup. Pittsburgh allowing under 10 fantasy points a game to tight ends. 6 targets last week with Will Levis, so that's something as well. It's a big thing for rookie quarterbacks to go to tight ends unless your name is CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, then you go to your wide receiver 1 for Stroud, his wide receiver 2, 3. He'll throw to anybody but their tight ends. So Treylon Burks, yeah, value. He's like all these guys you could say is value for their own reasons. Connor Hayward, obviously, value getting the receiving work for Pittsburgh. I'm okay with that. That's fine. But as far as guys that could have a huge impact on the game, especially his price point on FanDuel, right? Like cheaper than Allen Robinson, cheaper than Hayward, cheaper than Westbrook and Keeney. It's a good matchup for him. Like you look at who he's going to face against man, stuff like that. Really good. So on both sides, I like him. I'm okay with him being my last pay down. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I will have a breakdown on the main slate this week, thankfully. So if you guys are interested in that, stay tuned. I will have that. I will see you guys in the next one.